It's finally time! Since the beginning of this channel, I have reviewed many controllers. And not only I have analyzed each and every controller to the smallest details, but I've also disassembled every single controller I reviewed, even if it meant breaking them. So in this video, I'll present you the best controllers of 2023, along with my thoughts on what makes them deserve that spot. This award will have 8 categories, which are on screen right now. And without further ado, let's get started. The durability of the controller is tied to the internal components and build quality. All of the components will fail at some point, and so this award goes to the controller with the best repairability as well. With that said, a lot of the controllers with rubber membranes are already out, because if the membranes break, you won't be able to replace it. The 4th place on this list goes to the Gulikit King Kong 2 Pro. This controller has an amazing concept for the face buttons, which works without a rubber membrane and more like a mechanical switch, making these buttons extremely durable. The problem is that the D-pad uses traditional membranes, and those are susceptible to failure. Oh, and the same rule applies to the Mobapad M9. Now for the 3rd place. Remember when I say that rubber membranes are terrible for durability? Well, they indeed are, but there is one solution to this. That is, if the controller uses original button layouts from classic or modern consoles, it can avoid this problem. These controllers are forever, and there will be always demand for new replacement parts. And that's exactly what the 8-bit Do Pro 2 controller does. It uses Super Nintendo layout for the D-pad and face buttons, which is not only easier to repair, but will ensure that you can continue using your controller even after the membranes break. Also, 8-bit Do sells replacement membranes online, so if you ever need to replace those, they got your back. The only reason why this controller is not higher on this list is because the triggers uses a different layout of membranes. The 2nd place on this award goes to the Mobapad Chitu, Binbok Ultra Pro controller, and BigBigWon Blitz. These controllers have full mechanical buttons, which are much easier to replace in case one of the switches starts to fail. The reason why they are in 2nd place is because the Chitu has buttons that are too shallow and will often sink under the controller shell, and the BigBigWon Blitz and Binbok Ultra Pro controller D-pad isn't so good. The 1st place goes to the Vader 3 Pro and Machenike G5 Pro. These also have mechanical buttons, but the D-pad, face buttons, and analog sticks are much better. The Machenike back buttons can be a bit harder to press depending on the angle, but these buttons won't get stuck or fail, you just need to press them at the correct angle. The Vader 3 Pro is simply awesome. Great D-pad, great analog stick, great back buttons, and great triggers too, with the possibility to change them between digital mechanical switches and analog Hall effect triggers. So if you're looking for a durable controller, look for a controller with mechanical buttons. These switches are much easier to find and replace, and you can find many different types of switches in the market. Best design. The 5th place goes to INE controllers. I have not reviewed those, but for this category, we don't need to have the controllers in hand. You can judge them by the pictures. And I believe that INE has a lot of great looking controllers. Just look at them. I would definitely want some of these. The 4th place goes to Binbok Gemini. This controller has a cool design straight out of the box. The see-through plastic lets you see the dual rumble motors inside, and it also has nice RGB lights. The only con is that the smooth plastic finish is susceptible to scratches and fingerprints in the long run, but it is still a good looking controller. The 3rd place goes to the PB Tails Crush controller. Inspired by sports cars, this controller doesn't have back buttons or fancy macros, but it has many options for faceplates to fully customize your controller. And it is actually pretty resistant to fingerprints. The 2nd place goes to the BigBigWon Rainbow 2 Pro. Unlike the Gemini, it has a matte finish on the shell, avoiding fingerprints and scratches, and the RGB LEDs shines around the entire controller. Not only that, but the light effects are fully customizable. And the 1st place has to go to the Machenike G5 Pro. It has a magnetic faceplate with a matte finish, a set of stickers to put under it, amazing RGB colors, a semi-transparent analog stick, and on top of everything, it has the silver gradient paint finish, making this the best looking controller of 2023. Best app. The third place goes to BigBigWon. Their app is only available on smartphones, and while it's very simple, it covers all of your basic needs. Also, it doesn't have any intrusive permissions. The second place goes to 8BitDo. Their app is available on PC and smartphones, and it's very intuitive and easy to use. And the first place goes to FlyDigi. Their app has all of the basic functionalities, but also do so much more. On PC, their app will enable adaptive triggers on the Apex 3, changing the trigger response depending on the weapon you have on the game. And on smartphones, they simply have the best touch mapper ever, with so many options that you can spend hours just configuring your controls. It turns any mobile game into a console-like experience. Best smartphone controller. For the best smartphone controller, we have two subcategories. The first one is for telescopic controllers, you know, the kind of controller where you insert your smartphone in the middle. The second category is the clip controller, where you use the smartphone on a clip attached to the controller. For telescopic controllers, the third place goes to the Gamevice Flex. This controller lets you use your smartphone with a smartphone case, no matter the size. The D-pad is good and it has analog triggers, but unfortunately the analog sticks have dead zones. The second place goes to the Gamesir X2 Pro. This telescopic controller from Gamesir comes with a carrying case, the analog sticks are great, it has programmable back buttons, and the D-pad is very good. The only con about this controller is that the ergonomics aren't so good. It is kinda small and the D-pad is not in a good spot for 2D games. The first place goes to the Gamesir G8 Galileo. This is currently the best telescopic controller now. The ergonomics are much better than the X2 Pro. It is upgraded with Hall effect sticks, and it also has a PlayStation mode that is compatible with PlayStation Remote Play. The D-pad position is still not that good, but we'll have to see what other controllers will be able to fix that in the future. For clip controllers, I'm only considering controllers that comes with a clip in the package, because if you're buying a controller to play on a smartphone and the clips come separately, it already makes no sense. So the third place goes to the QRD N5. This is a PlayStation controller that's compatible with smartphones, and it's compatible with PlayStation Remote Play too. It is not compatible with a touch mapper, so you'll have to use a third-party app to play touch-based games. Also, the analog sticks have dead zones in the axis, which is not that good. The second place goes to the Thunderobot G70. This one also comes with a clip. It has a mapper app called Keylinker app. The face buttons can be swapped with a membrane set and a mechanical set. And it has two back buttons and two extra remappable shutter buttons. Unfortunately, the build quality isn't that good, and the analog stick has dead zones in the axis. The first place goes to FlyDigi Apex 2. This is the best clip controller for your smartphone, period. As I mentioned before, the FlyDigi app is perfect, and this controller not only has full mechanical switches, but the sliding BXY buttons makes it the best controller for playing MOBA games. And to make it even better, it has 10 extra shortcut buttons that you can map to whatever action you want. Best usability. While most controllers have a function button and many button combinations to use the special functionalities like the macro and turbo, there are a few controllers that makes using these functions much easier. The third place goes to the Binbok Ultra Pro controller. This controller has extra switches in the back that makes using these functions really easy. Just flip the switch you want and bam, 0 dead zones, or quick hair triggers, or even simulated gyro. Also, it is fully mechanical. The analog sticks are good and swappable. It has 2 back buttons and 2 extra shoulder buttons. But the D-pad isn't so good. The second place goes to the BigBigWon Blitz. With the 4 function buttons on the front, using this controller is super easy. The icons makes it very intuitive, and not only that, but the functions can be used in addition to one another. So you can remap a button and add turbo on top of that, creating an extra independent turbo button. And in the first place goes to the BigBigWon again, but with the Rainbow 2 Pro. It has the same functionalities of the Blitz controller, but also it has swappable analog sticks and D-pad, a smartphone app that you can use to customize and enable any functions on the fly, 100 Hz of polling rates, trigger stoppers, and it also looks much cooler. But just like the Blitz, the D-pad is not very good. Best compatibility. For the best compatibility, most controllers are compatible out of the box with the Nintendo Switch, PC, and smartphones. For other consoles, you'll have to buy the specific model you need, like the QRD N5 for PlayStation consoles or the Gamesir G7 SE for Xbox. But there is one controller that is compatible with almost everything, and that is the BigBigWon Rainbow 2 Pro. You can use this controller on PS4, PS5 with PS4 games, Xbox Series consoles, Switch, smartphones, and PC. You will need to plug an original controller to the dongle to make it work with PlayStation and Xbox consoles, but it is compatible in the end, so the first place goes to the BigBigWon Rainbow 2 Pro, and second place to all the others. Just keep in mind that recently Microsoft has released an update to block third-party controllers, and I couldn't find any info if the Rainbow 2 Pro still works. Best ergonomics. For best ergonomics, I'm not qualifying any controller that mimics our first-party controller layout. This award goes to controllers with original ergonomics. With that said, this award depends on each person's preferences, and these are mine. The third place goes to the Nixy Athena. Even though this controller has a terrible analog stick and D-pad, its chunky size makes it perfect for those with big hands, and overall it feels very comfortable to use on the Switch in portable mode. Second place goes to the PB Tails Crush controller. This one also feels very good on your hands. The plastics are smooth, the analog sticks are also super nice with a different rubber that is more soft and grippy than what you see on other controllers. And the first place goes to the Bayard 9124. This is the most comfortable controller I've held so far. The shape is very nice and all of the curves fits on your hands perfectly. One thing to note is that the ergonomics on this controller is the exact same of the Gamesir T4 Pro. So even though I didn't review that one, I think both deserve the first place spot. Best accessory. The third place on this list goes to the Brook Power Bay. This is a dock for your Switch that doubles up as a GameCube adapter, being the perfect solution to play Smash on the go with GameCube controllers in a minimal setup. It also works with smartphones, and it probably works with a Steam Deck too, but you'll have to use an extension cable to connect it. The second place goes to the BigBigWon Armor X Pro and the Retroflag Super Pack. Both accessories are intended to be used with an original Xbox Series controllers, and both has its pros and cons over the other. The Armor X has 4 back buttons and works on the PS4, PC, and Nintendo Switch, but you'll have to use it with a dongle. The Super Pack, on the other hand, doesn't need to have a dongle plugged in, and it has only 2 shortcut buttons on the top. You can use the rechargeable battery of the Super Pack without needing to remove the accessory. With the Armor X Pro, if you remove the accessory, you'll have to provide batteries for your controller. And the first place goes to the Mayflash Magic S Ultimate. This is an adapter that lets you use your controller with any other platform. The compatibility is huge, accepting any first-party controllers, and even some third-party ones too. It works with the PS3, PS4, PS5 if you're playing PS4 games, Android, PC, classic consoles, you name it. And you can connect your controller wired or wirelessly. It can work with wireless headsets too. And to finish the video, here's my general tier list. Let me explain my criteria for ranking these controllers. On the tier S stands the FlyDigi Apex 2, and though this controller is not in production anymore, it still sits in the very top of the rank. It doesn't have Hall effect sticks, and the D-pad isn't so good to be honest. But what makes this controller stand on the very top of this ranking is because this is a controller that innovates and does what no other controller has done. With the sliding buttons, you can open up many incredible possibilities for your games. And with so many extra buttons, you can play even some complex games that would never be possible on a gamepad like League of Legends. On the A+ tier, we have another row of incredible controllers. These have flawless sticks, face buttons, and D-pads. They feel very good ergonomically, and on top of that, they have extra functions like macro, turbo, simulated gyro, and back buttons. This also has a smartphone and PC app that lets you customize it even more. On the A, we have great controllers too, but lacking some of the extras mentioned before. Some of these doesn't have macro, back buttons, or PC app, but they are great controllers as well. On the A- tier, we have solid controllers with good analog sticks and D-pad. Some has back buttons and macros too, but these feels a bit less polished than the row above. On the B tier, we have controllers with a lot of potential, but these have one or two flaws here and there. These 4 controllers have a bad D-pad, this one has bad face buttons, and these other 3 have dead zones in the analog sticks. On the C tier, we have controllers that also have problems but are worse than the tier above, like the Gamesir X2 that has terrible dead zones, or the Nyxi Wizzard and Doyoki Joycons that feels off on the ergonomics. And well, the tier D, just avoid these. These controllers has many flaws and problems, and are only worth getting if you pay a really low price for them. And this is it. This is my analysis on the best controllers of 2023. And we have many great controllers coming up in the next year, like the Elo Vagabond and the Gulikit King Kong 3 Max. I'd like to thank you, the viewer, for watching all of my reviews, and I wish you a great 2024. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.